Hi, everybody. Let's talk about the state of Veve. So I think the last time I did a video was a month and a half ago before I went to New York to the Veve party. That was super fantastic. I'll talk a little bit about that. But mainly what I want to spend today talking about is the state of Veve, my thoughts on that, where are we at, is everything going to implode? I don't know. Let's talk to it. I did today, I was able to grab all three, the Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, and the Ronin. They look fantastic. Interesting, they're all animated. They all look good. They're all FA, of course. And kind of an interesting crafting mechanic that they had there. So definitely wanted to grab those. I was lucky to get, I got the first couple in the secondary, and then I crafted the Ronin. So whatever works for you, right? But I'm going to talk about three different things, and this particular discussion is not going to be so much about collectibles, more going to be about business. Some of you know my business background. I've been involved in a lot of startup companies, so I have some experience in that. And I want to talk about Veve from that perspective today. So one of the things that's difficult, and I'm going to use a word that I don't normally use on this channel, I try not to use, and it's not financial advice, obviously, is the word invest. So when you're investing in a startup tech company, one on the cutting edge, bleeding edge, Veve would probably fit that category. I think you kind of examine it from three things. Always three things on this channel. The first is you want to examine the product, and you want to. It's tough because especially if it's a new tech, you might not understand how it's going to be built, how it's going to be developed. Do they have patents? How are they going? All these different things. But I think from Veve's perspective, they definitely, even from the get-go, really had a good product. Let me be more precise in that. So the first competitive advantage, of course, they have is they were able to partner with all these incredible artists and IPs. And really, even right out of the gate, when you look at Todd, which was the very first NFT they produced, it's unbelievable. It's beautiful. They were immediately able to put those in AR. They're 3D. And so the product themselves, I think, has been very solid. Now, additionally, what you want to do, and if you go look at any type of company, you want to look at what is your, great, you come up with one product. What is your ability to reproduce that product, and how are you going to continue to adapt that? And they've shown an incredible pipeline of products. It seems like for the next couple of years, they've really got that figured out. And that, in a weird way, maybe not in a weird way, but definitely is one of the powerhouse strengths of this particular company. Now, the other part of the product I would say, which is more questionable, is the value proposition. It's such a new thing, digital collecting, which now has been around a couple of years. And really, it's funny how people have really, even people that are skeptics, understand what it is. And I think they're maybe not open to it, but at least they understand what it is. And then, of course, people like myself that have really embraced it, we can see the value in it. But that is one of the biggest things that is still needs to be shown. I only say that because, for example, if you go to buy a car, you can understand the value in that. I can use it, I can drive it to work. There's all kinds of different things. When you have something brand new, the customer doesn't understand that value necessarily. So that's part of an educational process. So the first thing, like I said, is product. Okay, the second thing I would talk about is the customer acquisition and cost of getting these customers. And in a new environment where people don't understand things, that acquisition cost can be very high. And really, when you're looking at the grand scheme, a company, of course, wants to be profitable, that could really cut into your costs. And depending on what it is, could sink you. And I think they have been very careful in spending money. They obviously have spent some, but maybe not as much as people would like. They do have the advantage of these big IPs, so that helps them. But this is something where I think we still don't quite understand, and they're playing, as all digital collecting companies are playing, this kind of game of, when is it right to pour a lot of money into it? Maybe the market's not right because, collectibles, there's not something that people need on a regular basis. So understanding and how they figure that out, I think they're still weaving that into their business plan. You can see that the way they've pitched it to potential other companies is you can add these NFTs as part of your marketing plan. So maybe, if you have a Spider-Man movie coming out, let's have an NFT at the same time. It just assists in broadcasting that message. So I think we're not exactly sure, and they're not exactly sure of this path. How do we market this? It's an educational element on top of, when is the right time to do that? I would say right now it's a little dicey in understanding how to get customers right now. All of the different various projects, they're kind of scrambling to do that. We don't know where that's going to go. All right, the third thing I'd say from a business perspective is the distribution network. So, in other words, you might have a great product, but you have to use somebody else's distribution network. In other words, you might make a movie, but then you have to partner with the movie theaters to actually distribute your product. So, in this game, they kind of have two distribution networks, and maybe they'll have others that we don't know. But one is mainly they use the Apple Store or some of these other ones to get their app out there, and then they have to pay fees. As you would if you had a movie and you had your movie in the movie theater, you have to pay fees to the movie theater as well. They take a cut of the ticket. They do have the website so they can directly speak to their customers and make money and not have the middleman there. I don't understand all the economics of that, but it definitely seems to be a much better situation in terms of not having to have people quote unquote take a cut. But I'm sure there's other distribution networks that they want to look at. Especially it sounded like, if they want to use other countries, maybe there's a distribution network specifically that they're forced to use, like in China or other places. I'm not sure that, but that could be a part of that. And it's really complicated. But it's definitely something that you have to look at when you're looking at the overall company, because you might have a great product, you might be able to get your customers, but if you can't get that network that allows them to transact and buy your product properly, that's really, really difficult. So if you look at, for example, Tesla, I don't know if they ever considered it, but, would they use these dealerships to sell their cars? No, they never, they were always going to seem to be always going to sell right off their website, which obviously there's a whole nother level of issues involved with that as well, which they figured out. So here, we talk about interoperability. Are they going to use some of these other marketplaces like OpenSea and etc.? They have not done that. There's obviously various reasons for licensing and other reasons why they haven't done that. But those would be other distribution networks that could potentially get into. Right now, it doesn't seem like they need to do that, but it's something to look at. But what's interesting is if another player comes into the market, they seem to dominate and are able to, quote unquote, distribute and sell NFTs at a high level. Maybe Veve partners with them, and that would help them get their message out and get their sales to potentially new customers. Maybe something would exist, only in Asia, and you'd have to partner with them or something like that. We don't know. The market is still evolving. So those three things I'll go through: the product, customers and customer acquisition, and then distribution. The distribution, I'd say, once again, I don't give them a good or bad mark. Definitely, they might get a bad mark if they didn't have their website up and running yet. If you remember, that took them some time, but they do have that now. And it seems like they're, obviously the dominant player is Apple Store and some of these other places where you have to pay a significant fee of your transactions to them. So in looking at the company from an investment perspective, the other last thing would be, what type of market share or brand do they have in the marketplace? And I think most people would consider them to be one of the leaders in digital collecting NFTs at this point. If you are looking at a particular company for what has happened in the past, and that's important because especially when you're looking at a management team or whatever, and I'll talk about that in a second, there's been bumps, there's been good and bad, but you always want to look forward. You don't want to look at the point that, it's like when you're trying to throw the football to a receiver. You don't throw where they're at, you throw further down the field because they got to catch it when it's further down the field. And when you're investing, you want to look at what it can become, and is there something here for explosive growth? There obviously is. They've had their challenges, and I think it's difficult in kind of an international and a highly regulatory and gray market. They are unsure, I think, of certain things. Although what I will say is it seems like their customer base has been very solid. Some people have said that they've grown it a little bit, but I think they've lost some, so maybe they're break even. Maybe they're actually bleeding a couple customers. But they definitely, and you've heard me say, kind of have this kind of core 5,000 customers that are pretty dedicated. I think you can build from there. We just need to see some of the other elements of the economy kind of change, the global economy. Maybe that allows for more liquidity and people could get interested in digital collectibles. But right now, everything's kind of suffering. If you look at collectibles as an asset class across the board, It's not doing really well. The other element, which is interesting from an investment perspective, and that's kind of the 1 + 1 = 5 or 1 + 1 = 3, which you might not make sense, but are there elements in this new world that this by itself is valuable, but this by itself is valuable? When you have them together, it's super valuable. And so what I would say is the digital collectible platform valuable, but then when you add in a metaverse like the Veveverse, some sort of social media aspects that might be a part of that, when you add those together, is that more valuable than the sum of those two parts? I think there's some potential there, and we don't understand that yet. There's maybe some other partners there that we don't understand, that once those are integrated in, it could become super, super valuable. In other words, they partnered with some sort of sports things, they're showing exclusive sports, or there's some sort of element there in that particular Veveverse that you can see only specific content that would pull people in. Those types of things, I think we don't know, and could make that super valuable. So overall, from my perspective right now, I understand why people are frustrated, but it's still definitely, if you look at it right now, forget the past, only look to the future, an interesting investment. I obviously am still here and watching, and it's fun to be a part of the ride. Thanks for watching. Take care.